Driving from Akureyri to Borgarnes, where and what are some good stops to make?
First of all, driving from Akureyri to Borgarnes is a fairly long drive, so I would expect 4 hours of driving at least, non-stop that is. So making stops, you have to plan it a little bit well ahead because you can't make basically too many stops. So, but if you are up for, let's say, a 12-hour day, you can go to villages like Dalvík and Siglufjörður. They are both on the north, on the peninsulas, on the North Fjords. Otherwise, Blönduós is a stop that you need to take more like a service stop, but it's worth also going maybe down to the beach. But then after Blönduós, we have a peninsula called Vatnsnes. Vatnsnes, it's a beautiful peninsula and worth the drive. And in choosing between where to stop, I would definitely put that as one of the main objectives. And there you have a stone formation called Hvítserkur, which is a beautiful volcanic stone structure, but according to the myth, of course, it's a troll. So, and it's also named the Land of Seals. If you look that up, you will get this area. Maybe that's more easy than trying to learn the Icelandic words.
How many days do you think makes sense to spend in the north? Let's say for someone that's got a 10-day trip.
If they're doing the ring circle in 10 days, I would spend 2 nights in the north. And definitely in focusing on, because there's a lot to see in the north, there's also a lot to see in Vatnajökull National Park in the south by the glacier. So I always recommend to people to stay 2 nights in the south and 2 nights in the north, for sure.
Okay, so thinking about that, let's fill in the ring road then. It's a 10-day ring road trip. So 2 nights in the south and then?
Yes, leaving Reykjavik, I would always be 2 nights in the south coast, maybe focusing on the highlands for 1 day, going over to Vatnajökull National Park for 2 nights. And then it's all about the glacier, of course, whether it's glacial hikes, glacial lagoons, hikes into canyons and so forth. Zodiac boat tours. Then I usually stay 1 night in the East Fjords. Sometimes people want to be 2 nights, but if you have 10 days, I would stay 1 night in the East Fjords and then 2 nights in the north. And then with a long drive from the north to get to the south, sometimes I recommend people staying 1 or 2 nights on Snæfellsnes Peninsula, which is close to Borgarnes. And from there, it's a relatively nice and short drive to the capital again, closing the circle.
So thinking about that, where would you base yourself? And I know you mentioned sort of the East Fjords and some of the other locations, but are there particular towns along this route that you think make sense for people to, a couple of them, to stay in?
Yes, there are several towns on the south coast, but I prefer to stay, in hotels that are usually in the middle of nowhere. So in the Icelandic countryside, you could say, and but still have close access to the villages if you need any supplies. But the south coast, then close to Eyjafjallajökull, that erupted in 2010. Some of you might actually know how to say it already, but and then in Vatnajökull there are only a few locations, few hotels, so any of them are fully valid. And then when it comes to the East Fjords, there are a few. I have a preference of Eskifjörður, but people stay. There are a lot of different fjords with small villages that are nice to stay in. And then in the north, I would always prefer Lake Mývatn over Akureyri. And then, you move yourself to the peninsula. You can stay in Stykkishólmur village, or you can stay away from the village, and then closing the circle in Reykjavik.
They'll be in the West Fjords and West Iceland for a week. What are some can't miss places while out there?
Ísafjörður village and Patreksfjörður village. I actually grew up there as a kid, so that's a must visit.
What's there? What's it?
Sites.
If you could also mention.
Well, it's an old fishing village, and they actually have started making it look a little bit attractive. But the nature around it is absolutely amazing. So, for example, on your way from Ísafjörður to Patreksfjörður, you will have Dynjandi waterfall. But with spectacular views, there's a lot of driving included when you travel the Westfjords, but there are beautiful sites in between. Látrabjarg Cliffs is basically the highest point, the highest cliffs in Iceland, and the closest location to Greenland. And it's one of these big colonies for bird migration. So if you go in the summertime, you will have millions of birds in the cliffs and millions of birds in the ocean waiting to get into the cliff. So it's spectacular. And then we have Rauðisandar, which is basically the red beach. We call it, we either call them white, black, or red. And this one, it might be orange, but it's a definite visit as well. And then just enjoy, because most of the time you're driving over mountains to get into the next fjord, and enjoy those viewpoints.
Awesome. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So this is a pretty specific question from Vicky, but is the 5 million star bubble hotel worth the stay in the summer?
You won't
because of the
much.
daylight. I guess I should add that. She's asking because there's so much daylight.
You won't sleep much. No, I mean, it's first of all, the bubble concept, it's a brilliant concept, but as a traveler, you can only book it by yourself. You cannot never get anyone else to book it for you, which is good for a personal communication with the supplier. I know it was first built for the winters for the Northern Lights. That's the main idea behind it, to stay in a bubble and to have possible views of the Northern Lights. I simply don't know if they must have covers or curtains to cover the daylight during summer. But the concept is fair, but keep in mind the bathrooms are shared. You have to leave the bubble to get to a shared bathroom.
Okay, I think that answers it.
Okay.
From Raquel, hello, I will be there in late August. Best lava tunnels to visit, and will they still have some ice sculptures?
There might be ice sculptures in a lava tunnel far north, but it's very unlikely. Most lava tunnels will be, I would say, on the south part of the island. There's one called Raufarhólshellir. Sadly, I can't even translate that one, but it's a lava tube, 30 minutes from Reykjavik, easy access. They also offer transports to and from Reykjavik if you're not on a vehicle. It's like a 3-hour program. It takes half an hour, 40 minutes to get there. You get prepared, you go into the tunnel for about 1 hour, and then you go the same way back.
Okay. Thinking about that, is there a particular tour that you'd recommend?
From Reykjavik, there are several tours. The Golden Circle is always popular, and some of them even have like this extra touch to it. Some of them might visit the Friðheimar tomato farm as a part of it. Others might go to the Secret Lagoon, to add like a special touch to it. But I would say in general, in booking the Golden Circle, they all do a good job. But look out for those extra flavors that some of them might give. South Coast, beautiful, back and forth. They even have South Coast including glacial hike, which is nice, but it's probably going to be a easy 10-hour program. And then probably my favorite would be going into the Highlands. So from Reykjavik, you go far into the Highlands where you're surrounded by nature throughout that travel. You will have, of course, lava fields all over. You will have black deserts. You will have glacial rivers, glaciers, volcanoes. unbelievable territory, and not many people who actually get to go there. But in doing that, you might have to join, well, try to get a jeep tour. Sometimes they are private, sometimes they are, 6 in a car, something like this.
You'd never guess that going into the Highlands is actually your preference of those tours there.
Thank you. I think that's a compliment.
It is. Okay, from Sierra, do you have, this is a neat one. What's your favorite non-touristy thing to do or see near Reykjavik?
Highlands, again, definitely. But then again, Reykjanes Peninsula, where you actually land when you arrive in Iceland, you land in Keflavík, which is on that peninsula. There are many short drives from Reykjavik to that area that are not, well, they are definitely out there, but they're not as popular as the Golden Circle, for example. But then again, yes, driving basically into the Highlands would be, well, that's basically when you are all alone in the world, in nature and away from the crowds.
How about for travel in August or for travel in the summer in general, is bringing winter gear or cold weather gear, is that necessary? And more generally, what's the weather like?
No. It's, I would say, the warmest month of the year. So warm to us, probably average to most others. So temperatures from 60, well, on a good day, it could go up to 80. And what's most important, what we have to fight all day is the wind. So have something windproof. And if it's wind and waterproof, it's even better. But I'm actually guiding with people, and I always bring a warm sweater, warm socks, warm hat, just to have it. It's better to have it, but you will never need to pack more than one luggage. One big bag. That should be more than enough.
What glaciers do you think are best for glacier hiking, and is snowmobiling available even in the summer?
If we start on the glacial hikes, again, it depends a little bit on where you're staying. There's a beautiful glacier that I was actually on today on the south coast. It's about 2-hour drive from the capital, and it's called, of course, a long word, Sólheimajökull. And it means, well, Sol means sun, Heima means home or the world, and Jökull means glacier. This is a very nice one for basically people of all levels, and all the hikes will be easy level unless you ask for a more adventure. Then basically the only glacier we can actually hike in Vatnajökull National Park is Falljökull. Most other glaciers it's just forbidden to hike on them. So this one is the one to do in Vatnajökull National Park. The other one is Sólheimajökull. In maybe comparing the two, I would think would be less people on Sólheimajökull than Falljökull. Concerning snowmobiling, I love snowmobiling, and I used to work as a snowmobile guide for 2 years on Langjökull Glacier. During the winter time, it's a great adventure. Well, if you have good weather, that's one in a million. No, I'm joking. It's a great adventure during winter, but a totally different experience during the summer, because most of the glaciers, well, during winter they collect snow, so you are basically snowmobiling on a glacier. But during the summer and high summer, most of the snow has gone. So visually it's beautiful. Riding it's going to be very slippery, very wet, and yeah, it's challenging. So I would always hike the glaciers in the summer and snowmobile in the winter. That's how I would put it.
Okay, that's interesting. Not a pleasant ride.
No, it's just different, and yes, very slippery.
Okay, next question here. So this one is fairly specific. I'll just read the whole one and then we can probably synthesize some of it. I'm traveling via cruise ship and will be 1 day in each of these ports. Now I'll kill the names: Seyðisfjörður, Grundarfjörður, Akureyri, and Reykjavik. not wanting to rent a car, is it safe and let's say reasonable to hire a taxi to take us to waterfalls, hiking trails, and other places around those ports?
If we start with Seyðisfjörður, I would say they are always ready to accept people. So I'm certain they have several tours around their village, in their village, short hiking tours. But then I'm sure they also offer tours to the next villages and Egilsstaðir. Egilsstaðir is like maybe the capital of the East, if we can say that. And they have several. Well, it's a bigger town, so they have several activities as well. But Krauma, for example, if you want to go for luxury geothermal bath, it's Krauma. Yes, I would for Seyðisfjörður, I would say that if you look for information about Seyðisfjörður, you will have several opportunities that they're offering to see. Grundarfjörður is on the west. They definitely offer whale watching. They might offer tours around Snæfellsnes Peninsula. But taxis, I'm not sure if you will find a taxi in these areas. I'm not sure. But I do know that the cruise ships, they do offer tours from all of them. They might take their commission for it, which is, I'm not the expert, but I would definitely do the research on if you will want to look for it yourself, or if you want them to take care of it. But they definitely do all that for their clients. Then after Grundarfjörður is, you said Akureyri?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Akureyri, again, you are in the north. They will have several tours, all the way from whale watching to Lake Mývatn. Definitely Diamond Circle is definitely something that you should keep in mind. It's beautiful. You will visit small fishing village. You will go to Ásbyrgi Canyon, which is a glacial canyon, absolutely beautiful. Dettifoss waterfall, the most powerful waterfall in Europe, and then Lake Mývatn, which that we mentioned before.
So I think you kind of you totally just answered this, but could you explain where and what the Diamond Circle is?
Yes, and having the Golden Circle, the north, of course, had to make a better circle, naming it the Diamond Circle. And but it's a beautiful tour. Similar program, easy to travel, a lot of beautiful things to see. It depends a little bit on if they do counterwise or counterclockwise, it doesn't matter. But Húsavík village, it's a beautiful, old, beautiful fishing village. They have a lot of whale watching, like we talked about before. They have a lot of very nice, actually, if you want to do lunch, I would highly recommend lunch in Húsavík, because they have a lot of seafood restaurants down by the harbor. Lunch in Húsavík. It's also what I think is known today as like the Eurovision Song Contest village, something like this. And so that's already for a certain crowd, a popular location. From Húsavík, you have Ásbyrgi Canyon that I mentioned. It's from above like a big shoe print. We say it's a shoe print of the horse of Odin in Norse mythology. One of his 8 legs stepped down there and made that glacial canyon. But we know, yes, it was formed during Ice Age, and it's beautiful for hikes. You can do all the way from 1 hour to 3 hour hikes easily, with beautiful views. Then from there you have a relatively half-an-hour drive to Dettifoss waterfall, which is, it's beautiful, but it's mostly powerful. It's one of the biggest glacial rivers that comes down from Vatnajökull Glacier down to making that beautiful waterfall. And then depending on, I would say, guides, tours, they will definitely make a stop in Mývatn, which is placed on or by the Atlantic Ridge. So it's highly volcanic. So sometimes they stop by geothermal areas, sometimes they stop by craters, sometimes they stop in the lava fields by the lake. So there are a few opportunities.
Nice. Okay, I think that's pretty comprehensive. A different question. We're heading back to the West Fjords with this one. Are there any sites there in the West Fjords that you would discourage visiting with a two-wheel drive vehicle going in early July?
I would simply just not travel the West Fjords on a two-wheel drive. It's as simple as that. No, because there are, if you are on a two-wheel drive rental car, I'm almost 100% certain that you're not allowed to drive gravel roads. And you will have several gravel roads on, that's the practical reason for it, because it doesn't matter what kind of protection package you have with the rental company, you will never be insured for the bottom of the car. So in going on a gravel road, not having the permit for it, you could get in serious financial troubles. For the safety side, if you're a local, if you have been driving gravel roads a lot, if you have experience, it's okay, but otherwise I would not recommend it.
What about some of the tours that folks can do out into these more remote places? Like I think one Super Jeep tours in, is it Thorsmark Park?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I don't know if those are in other places too, but so for folks who maybe have a two-wheel drive car or have a four-wheel drive, but don't want to fjord rivers or anything like that, are there any of those more adventurous Super Jeep or other type tours that you'd recommend?
Definitely. And there are several companies that do it, but I will definitely do it with like a Super Jeep. We call it the Super Jeep. Anything that has big tires is called the Super Jeep in Iceland. So, but most of the companies, and this is maybe one of the few areas that we were actually ready for tourism, is that we had a lot of Jeeps before, because we love going into the mountains, and some people even love getting stuck deliberately in the middle of winter somewhere outside. But yes, we have a special passion for that. And so there are several companies that do it, and Thorsmark is one of them, definitely. There is one actually does Thorsmark and the glacier. So they basically drive you on top of the glacier on a Super Jeep, which is, yes, I will write.
I was about to ask you for the name of the company.
Eyjafjallajökull is the glacier, so I know that South Coast do it. I know that, well, they actually have a name called Super Jeep. These are companies. I would love to put my name out there, but I can't find any guides or vehicles for it. But they do this. They basically do this every single day. That's their main operation. So they are both well prepared. They are well. They do have good vehicles and they a lot of experience. So it's for sure.
Okay. Well, so staying on this topic, Super Jeep or otherwise, are there any other outdoor sort of adventure, let's say active travel tours that you think are really good for folks to do?
So this is the other location, Landmannalaugar. That's like it's a big attraction. It's both for day tours into the highlands, like I was going over before, the scenery, and Landmannalaugar would be halfway. When you arrive in Landmannalaugar, you will have lava fields, glacial rivers, geothermal hotspots, rhyolite mountains with all the colors of the rainbow, glaciers. It's an amazing area to spend a few hours up to many days. And it's also where our nowadays popular hiking route, Laugavegur, starts and ends up in Thorsmark. So if people want to do the hiking part, that's also a route to do.
Okay. He or she wants to visit Vatnajökull, but then it's Flajökull or Svinafellsjökull.
Okay. So let me see. Greetings from Helsinki. Well, greetings back to you. I love Finland. Let me see. In Vatnajökull there are probably 40 plus outscored glaciers. because that's what the big glacier is doing. It's pressing all the ice in between all the valleys, in between the mountains. And Svinafellsjökull and Fláajökull are both small outskirt glaciers in the park. In visiting them, they're both beautiful, and many more. In going on them on a glacial hike, there is only one glacier that we can do, and that's this one, Falljökull. For hiking, if you want to go up to them, feel free. If there's a path up to them, feel free to walk it, drive it. You will always, like with Svinafellsjökull, there's a small parking lot and people can hike to it. Definitely worth a visit. It's basically my favorite outskirt glacier in this park. It's absolutely amazing. And I'm not the only one who thinks it's amazing. It's a huge Hollywood attraction. So like a GOT location where they shot most of the winter scenes. It's Batman Begins, Interstellar, a lot of movies. James Bond.
Wow, very cool.
Lara Croft.
All right. So sounds nice. Let's move on to the next question here. Traveling between June 15th and 25th, but I think this sort of applies to any time in the summer. What are the best times of day to avoid lots of crowds at the attractions?
Well, the advantage of, since you're asking about the best time, in going in June, you will have 24-hour daylight. So you can basically, if you don't like people, if you don't like crowds, just start 12 at midnight and start your tour. Start your rental drive, and there will be very few people. At other times, most companies they leave the capital around 9 o'clock. So in me, for example, when I do private tours and they want a mix of highlights and something, away from the crowds, out in nature, what I usually do is I just pick up my people at 8 o'clock. So if you're on a rental car, for example, and you leave at 8 o'clock, you will be ahead of the crowds going to those highlights. So for example, the Golden Circle, it's even enough. Well, if you go out 8 o'clock, you will be ahead of the crowd in Thingvellir National Park by the waterfalls. It will matter. It will count. Same for the South Coast, same for almost any. Just go a little bit earlier out.
You're traveling with a camper van or a caravan and are interested in visiting some places which are on the F roads, which they know they can't drive. Will there be any tours in the F roads that they can join?
Yes, I would always basically, just like the South Coast, I already put out the names here, Super Jeep and the South Coast, I believe they're called South Coast, yeah, South Coast Adventure. In every village, they will have a tour company or tour agency that are running these day tours. So if you Google Vík or tours from Vík, you will definitely get several, whether it's Katla or South Coast or other contractors. You definitely get contacts with them. Same for the north. If you do activities like Mývatn, you will get several opportunities for it. But yes, I would. I mean, the gravel roads. You could probably, if you're on a caravan, you will soon see the difference between gravel roads and then when it changes into basically a serious highland road. So it's. But again, I mean, what tends to happen is, since we do not have these boundaries, is that people get confident. They get so far on the vehicle on a gravel road, and then they think they can go a little bit further. I've done it myself, and then at some point you get into trouble. So be careful.
Are there any thermal baths that everybody knows the super famous ones, but are there any neat, lesser known ones that you really like and would recommend?
There are a few. In maybe bringing up the Blue Lagoon, yes, it's a big destination. Some would call it a tourist trap. Others would say it's one of the reasons for they want to come to Iceland. If you want to go to the Blue Lagoon, no matter what, do it in the morning time, before lunch. Go early, then you will be before the crowds. Other pools, there's well, first of all, we have, I think, more than 30 outdoor geothermal pools in the capital, which I would always recommend. It's both fairly cheap, and you're amongst the locals. So this is what I do every single day. I go to the swimming pool, go to the hot tub, go to the sauna. Don't swim too much, but it's an excellent day to end the day or start the day. Then there's a new concept called the Sky Lagoon, which I have not visited, but it gets a lot of good critic and reviews. But then I would say a natural one close to the capital is in Reykjahlíð. Reykjahlíð, it's by a village called Hveragerði, and it's not a secret anymore. So again, if you would want to go to it, I would leave early, morning time. But that's a geothermal. I would say a geothermal river than anything else. It's basically a hot river running from a geothermal hot spring.
So thinking about the pools, does just about every town have one of these?
Yes, very important. School, swimming pool.
Okay, so anywhere that people stay, though, they'll be able to go to a pool, whether it's the Blue Lagoon or the Sky Lagoon or what.
In the
they'll
villages,
have a local pool.
and if you are renting a summer house, it should have a hot tub. So and the water is going to be geothermal, of course.
Okay. Very different question here. So starting in Reykjavik, do you think it's better to get the ferry to the West Fjords or to go by road?
If you're going from Reykjavik to I would take the ferry from Stykkishólmur. It's going to be similar travel time, but it's good to mix it up, and it's an absolutely amazing bay to go through. And you make a short stop by a small island called Flatey. Very beautiful location. You'll probably not stop there, but it's a amazing location. So, but if you want to drive, it's going to be similar time, but more driving, understandably.
Okay. There's a couple other.
Basically, I would never do it in less than 5-6 hours from Reykjavik to the West Fjords.
You mean that it takes 5 to 6?
The drive.
Yeah, the drive. Yeah. Okay. For car rentals, it sounds like your recommendation for folks who want to get off the beaten path and into nature is to, one, I assume, to take a 4-wheel drive car, and then 2, correct me if I'm wrong, but are there any particular car rental companies that you recommend?
I do most of my business with Europcar. I would think they're all similar. I pay a little bit more for renting with Europcar, but they provide very good service because even though it happens very few times, but if you get a flat tire or something like this, they're usually very responsive. I know Hertz have them. Something's called Blue Car, Ice Car, Go Car. Go Car is actually, well, it's actually a colleague of mine that runs that one. He started with one rental car, and now he has a big company, so he's done very well. Kugu campers, if you want to do like a low budget, sleep in the car. So there's several, yes.
Okay. So a couple of other totally practical and very standard questions. Tipping in Iceland, what's the culture, what's expected, and what's nice to do?
Yes. That's the main reason why I don't like Lonely Planet. they basically, truthfully, now I'm telling you some inside information. They say that the Vikings are too proud to accept tips, so by no means offer them. You might offend them. It has nothing to do with it. I mean, but saying that, of course, it's not mandatory. And was never a part of our lives before tourism. But we get this question a lot, and well, 1/3 of our customers is, for example, from the States who are used to tipping, and that's why we often get this question, understandably. It's not mandatory, but it's well accepted, of course. But when to tip, when not, I would just say, like in the States, when you get good service, exceptional service, you want to leave something extra behind. Of course, it's always going to be accepted in local currency or dollars. I think it doesn't matter.
Okay.
But it depends a little bit on. I mean, if you meet someone for 10 minutes, it's maybe nothing to think about it. But if you're doing a glacial hike and the hike is amazing, the guide is amazing, he does everything to make you safe and does the extra mile, yes, definitely.